The MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. Billings voters will have the final say on whether to allow recreational marijuana dispensaries inside city limits. The City Council voting 6-3 tonight to approve ballot language that will appear in the upcoming November 2nd election alongside the city's ask of a $7.1 million public safety mill levy. That meeting tonight saw lengthy public comment and council discussion from those on both sides of the issue.
You know how many people have died from cannabis overdose? In the millennia of history, zero. Zero. I just think it's crazy that we're trying to outlaw a plant. It absolutely blows my mind. And we have an opportunity to kind of be a little bit more forward thinking in this town.
If it was a fair deal and it was accurate, I wouldn't have any problem with that. But that's the problem. You know, it wasn't fair, it wasn't accurate, and now it is in this one. So I think if you put it up to the city of Billings, I believe the majority of the people will not vote in favor.
Staff recommends approval.
Well, after voters passed I-190, the state legislature worked this year to draft a bill that outlined the rights to local governments had to the implementation of legalized marijuana. The council had staff get a head start on crafting the ballot questions so they could have the discussion ready and teed up in the case that the county commissioners didn't put the question on the ballot. If voters prohibit recreational dispensaries, those dispensaries selling medical marijuana will not be impacted by the outcome, along with 5 other types of marijuana businesses like transportation, testing labs, and distribution. Before the council vote, Mayor Bill Cole said for him the decision hinged on whether the voters had spoken on the issue.
They've spoken on something, there's no doubt about that. They did pass legalization by a significant margin in the state and here in the city. And I think that's their general will. And even if this goes on the ballot, I think there's a very real question of whether it will pass. My betting would probably be that it will not pass, but I don't know. But what I am pretty confident about is they didn't vote on specifically this issue of dispensaries.
Well, even if voters prohibit the recreational dispensaries inside Billings city limits in the future, the council will still have to wrestle with how to regulate 6 other types of marijuana businesses like cultivation, transportation, and testing labs. On the wildfire front, crews were busy with a large fire that broke out on I-90 near Pryor Creek Road earlier today. The flames began in an area called Indian Ridge and did force the closure of I-90 between Billings and Hardin for a short time because of heavy smoke and poor visibility. Several fire crews responded to that fire while a couple of helicopters and tankers attacked from the air. Those efforts paid off as firefighters were able to get a handle on that fire before it spread out of control, with I-90 reopening after about an hour. North of Glendive, Highway 16 is now down to only 1 lane after a large fire sparked this afternoon. The West Glendive Fire Department and several other agencies are fighting the flames. Tonight, crews are working to build a line around that fire and hold any existing lines. Authorities are asking everyone to keep clear of the area and use alternate routes as they battle that fire. And fear of flames has also shut down Highway 39 between Lame Deer and Colstrip. The Richard Spring Fire, burning 10 miles north of the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, is now scorched about 35,000 acres. According to a Facebook post from the Rosebud County Sheriff's Office, a fire warden closed that road as flames made a push towards the highway. Some better news tonight on the Trout Creek fire in Stillwater County near Absaroka, as all evacuation and pre-evacuation orders have been lifted at this time. Despite high winds, firefighters made great progress on the blaze, which burned a little more than 8,000 acres since Saturday. That fire is now 20% contained tonight, and crews describe fire activity as minimal. Some 96 firefighters continue to battle the flames, and the cause remains undetermined. We now turn to Chief Meteorologist Ed McIntosh. Ed, with 72 active fires currently burning around Montana, the cool down today was more than welcome, and it even ended some long streaks in the weather.
Yeah, that's right. You know, a big part of what we've been dealing with, along with the dry weather, is the heat. So take a look at the almanac from today. We ended up at 78, 10 degrees cooler than average, and even our morning start was 5 degrees below the morning start, and it certainly helped that we got some moisture in the area. 400s after midnight, and then about that same amount before midnight last night. So the records that we're talking about, first off, we've gone 23 days in a row, never dropping below 60 degrees. That's the third longest string in Billings records. The all-time record goes back to 2003. And then that also ended a string of days when we never fell below 80 degrees. 34 days in a row, our temperature in the afternoon was 80 degrees or hotter. Take a closer look at the forecast coming up.
An early Sunday morning shooting is now a homicide after the 32-year-old male victim died from his injuries. Officers responded to that shooting around 2:30 yesterday morning to find the man lying on the ground near the corner of 3rd Avenue South and South 27th. The victim was unresponsive, taken to the hospital where he later died. Billings police detectives are on the case, but at this time have not made any arrests and have no suspects. The name of the victim has not yet been released as well. On Friday, President Joe Biden extended the pause on interest and repayment of student loans until 2022. According to educationdata.org, Montana students borrow an average of $33,300 higher than students in neighboring Idaho, Wyoming, North and South Dakota. 120,000 Montanans have student debt. That's more than 11% of the population. Montana makes up about $4 billion of the nation's $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. The extension of the pause has rekindled discussion of possible student debt forgiveness, as Joe St. George reports.
How much has the Student Loan Forbearance Program helped Americans with federal student loans? Well, from March of last year when the program started to the end of January when it's now set to end, $110 billion is estimated to be in the hands of Americans instead of the federal government. The no payment pandemic policy has helped those with debt who are out of work especially. And for those who never lost their job, it's resulted in a bit more spending to jumpstart the economy. The White House indicating over the weekend this will be the last extension. And come the beginning of February, all Americans should be prepared to pay their loans again. While it's possible the president extends it one more time, just like he has done with the eviction moratorium, a bigger question is, will student loan forgiveness take place this year? Many progressives want the White House to do it unilaterally. Many conservatives say that would overstep presidential authority. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the most powerful Democrat in the House, made news with this answer in a recent press conference.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress.
But while President Biden has been reluctant to endorse student loan forgiveness, and while Speaker Pelosi is now reluctant to do so as well, when you speak to some progressives here on Capitol Hill, they say they're not done with the issue and they think real action could take place this year.
That is going to create, I believe, a very strong political pressure point.
Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is one of the leading progressives in the House and tells us the student loan debate isn't going away. She disagrees with the speaker. She thinks the president has the power to cancel debt on his own. Do you see any movement from the president or the speaker regarding forgiveness?
Well, I do think that there is some movement in place. So earlier this year, very quietly, the president called on the Department of Education to start issuing and studying his executive authority in student loan forgiveness. If they return with the conclusion that the president has the legal authority, which we know and believe that he does have, I think there'll be a significant step forward.
While the White House continues to review what presidential authority President Biden has, the House of Representatives and Representative Ocasio-Cortez will become increasingly influential in the coming days. Debate on that bipartisan infrastructure bill, as well as a separate partisan spending package, is expected to take place in that chamber soon. Student loan forgiveness will potentially be part of the conversation. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
As COVID-19 numbers spike across Montana, the state surpasses the 2,000 active case mark for the first time since February. Today, the state announced another 395 positive cases, with Yellowstone County reporting 38 of those. The state's largest county now has the third most active cases in Montana at 257, while Flathead County leads the way with 535. 154 patients are hospitalized tonight. More than 1,700 Montanans have died from the virus since the pandemic began. Today, MTN's Mike Dennison spoke with Montana Governor Greg Gianforte and health officials to find out what the state is and is not doing in response.
Governor Gianforte says the main thing the state is doing to stop the spread of COVID-19 has encouraged Montanans to consider getting vaccinated.
9 out of 10 people that are hospitalized now recently are people that have been unvaccinated. So I got mine. They're safe and effective. And if you haven't been vaccinated, I encourage you to go talk to your professional and consider it.
The State Health Department has been running public service announcements statewide on radio, television, and the web, encouraging people to get a shot. Still, Montana's vaccination rate for eligible people is only about 49%, well below the 70% experts say is a minimum for herd immunity. Now, the state, however, won't be issuing any mandates under Gianforte. And a state law he signed prohibits private businesses from requiring employees to be vaccinated and won't allow those businesses to deny services or access to their premises based on vaccination status.
One of the things we've learned over this last year is mandates don't work. I said from the beginning I campaigned on a platform of personal responsibility. We're going to focus on personal responsibility instead of mandates.
Republicans in the legislature and Gianforte also approved a law that essentially prohibits local officials from enforcing health mandates on businesses, like wearing masks indoors or limiting the size of gatherings.
So at this time, the only thing that we can do is to recommend that people wear that mask in indoor places and to really take into consideration the community at large and provide a way to keep everybody safe. Probably the most important message that's out there right now is that we want to slow down the spread of this virus and get it under control as our kids are getting ready to go back to school.
And speaking of schools, the governor said school boards should listen to parents when deciding what sort of protocols to put in place this fall. But he's not too keen on mandates to wear face masks.
Face masks inhibit learning. They have mental health consequences. And frankly, the potential of severe consequences are really diminished for this younger folks.
School boards around the state will be making that call soon. But when it comes to combating the virus in Montana, it looks like the message from on top is take personal responsibility to consider a vaccine. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
And vaccines are still readily available through most local public health departments and other health care providers. It's a big day for several border towns across Montana. Canada officially opened its border for non-essential travel, but that does not mean these towns can welcome Canadians back for business. MTN's Sean Wells brings us the story from Eureka.
Canada has officially opened their border for U.S. tourists for non-essential travel for the first time since March of 2020. A steady stream of cars trickled up to the border crossing at the port of Roosevelt just north of Eureka Monday morning for the first time in more than 16 months. All American citizens can now travel into Canada for non-essential travel if they are fully vaccinated against COVID-19 at least 14 days before entering the country. Fully vaccinated travelers will be exempt from quarantine once entering Canada. However, Canadians are still prohibited from driving across the border into the U.S. for non-essential travel until at least August 21st. First and Last Chance Bar and Duty Free Store manager Cheryl Hotstetler says her business won't see any kind of sudden uptick in customers until both borders are fully open for non-essential travel.
And I don't see it to be getting near normal till next summer at all.
Cheryl said the duty-free business has been non-existent since the beginning of the pandemic.
Duty-free went to almost zero because you can't cross the border. And then in summertime, this is our busy time to get us through the winter, and the last few summers, absolutely no traffic.
Cheryl says support from residents at the bar is the only reason the business has been able to stay open the last 16 months.
Thank God for our locals. They really supported us very well. They're awesome.
In Eureka, Sean Wells, MTN News.
Well, those entering Canada for non-essential travel will need to show proof of vaccination. Montana's political leaders providing their takes on the partial opening of the northern border today. All were happy to see the development, but they're still pushing the Biden administration to do more. Senator Steve Daines urging President Biden to do what's right and open the northern border for Montana families, workers, and small businesses. Senator John Tester said Canada is our #1 trading partner, and Montanans depend on free-flowing trade and travel to create good-paying jobs and grow our small businesses. I'm going to keep pushing hard to get the border open, he says. And Governor Gianforte told MTN he has continually pushed the president to fully open the border and said hardworking Montanans continue to pay the price for the Biden administration's decision to keep the northern border closed. All right, still to come on the MTN 10 o'clock news here on Q2. The Billings Clinic hopes a new robotic scope will lead to more lives saved. We'll show it to you coming up next. Then a little later in sports, the Scouts will soon have a new facility to call home. We'll take a look at the construction progress on the new Bridger Gym in just a bit.
From Montana's news leader.